Today we will be using division to solve some problems, and the first problem is an evaluation problem. Evaluate means to substitute a number in place of a variable, and that's what we have for this first problem. So it says x equals 12 thousandths. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this value of x right here, and we're going to substitute it in place of the x in the equation. And so from this point, what we'll end up doing is rewriting the problem as 32 4/10 divided by 12 thousandths. Thousandths because here we're in the tenths place for the 0, hundredths and thousandths place for the 2. So when we divide, just as we did yesterday, we have to move that decimal point over in the divisor so it can become a whole number. So it's moving over 3 spaces, and we'll do the same thing with the dividends. 1, 2, 3. So that means we have to add some zeros here and rewrite the problem. So now we're dividing 12 into 32,400. So we'll go ahead and start the division here. And 12 goes into 32 2 times. That makes 24 with 8 left over. Bring down the 4, and if you know your 12s really well, you'd know that 12 times 7 makes 84. And we bring down that 0, or subtract, and we make 0, but we still have 2 extra place values we'll need to add some zeros in. So 27,000 is our answer for the first one. Well, looking at the next problem, same sort of thing. It tells us what x is, so we'll substitute that value of x into the equation. And from this point, we'll go ahead and set up the problem. So negative 9 3/10 divided by 3/10. So we'll move that decimal point over in the divisor 1 space, do the same thing with the dividend, and set up the division problem. 3 into negative 93. Well, since we have one negative, our answer is going to be negative. So make sure you put that in the quotient and set up the division. 3 into 9 goes 3 times evenly. Bring down the 3, and 3 goes into 3 one time. And we get a remainder of 0, so we've got our answer, negative 31. Well, moving on to the next problem, we've got a word problem. It talks about how a salmon loses 6/10 mile of forward progress over the course of a day. And it says, due to the current, on an average, how many miles, so here it says it loses 6/10 of a mile. How many miles does the salmon lose per hour? Okay, this word per is signifying division. And so usually we're going to write a division problem from now on as a fraction. So what they want to know is how many miles per hour. Miles per hour. Well, again, I said per represents a division sign. So what we can do is think of it as a fraction. Miles per hour is what we want. And then when we have something like this, we're going to divide just like we had done before. We're going to divide the number of hours into the number of miles, and that will give us that number, miles per hour. So let's go ahead and substitute our numbers into these 2 units here. So we've got 6/10 of a mile here. So that number is going to go in the numerator. So 6/10 of a mile. And we're dividing by the number of hours. Well, it says that it does 6/10 of a mile in a day. So we have to know how many hours are in a day. Well, we should know that 24 hours equals 1 day. And so what we're going to do is we're going to divide by, instead of a day, we're going to divide by 24 hours. So let's go ahead and set up our problem. It's already set up where we don't need to even move the decimal point because we've got our divisor as a whole number. Even though the dividend has a decimal point, that's okay. So we're going to bring that decimal point straight up, and then 24 does not go into 6. We're going to have to add a 0. And then it goes into 60 2 times. Makes 48 with 12 left over. So we'll bring down that 0 there and add that other 0 up in the dividend, and we have 24 into 120, and that goes 5 times evenly, and that will make 120. And so we'll be done with the number. And so what we'll do is we'll rewrite our answer as 0 and 25 thousandths, so 0 and 25 thousandths miles per hour. And that would be our answer there. Well, the next one is an area problem, and it says that the area of a rectangular piece of land is 3/4 of a square mile. So let's go ahead and draw a little picture of our rectangular square land here, and this is area here equals 3/4 of a mile. I'll use m for mile there. And it says the width of the land is 1/2. So I'm going to call this side the width, and it's 1/2 of a mile. It says, what is the length? That's the question. So whatever our unknown is, or whatever the question is going to be our unknown. So we'll do L equals our unknown. We don't know, so I'll put a question mark. Well, what we need to know is the area formula for a rectangle, and it's just length times by width. So let's go ahead and substitute what we know into the variables that we have. So the area is 3/4. So we'll put that in place of area. The length we don't know, so we'll put L, and then we're going to multiply by the width, which is 1/2. So we've got our problem now. And the way we're going to solve it is by multiplying by the reciprocal. So when we have length times by 1/2, we can multiply this equation by 2/1. And what will happen is the 2's will cancel out, and we'll just be left with L, which is what we want. We want to know the length. So we do the same thing to the other side. So we're multiplying by 2/1. So we go ahead and do the division. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. And we multiply across. And I've got 3/2 equals L. So what we want to do now is we want to change that to a mixed number. A little bit easier to understand. So 2 goes into 3 1 time. And that leaves me with 1 left over. Bring up the decimal point, 2 goes into 10 5 times. So I could rewrite the answer as 1 5/10, or I could write it as 1 1/2 mile is equal to the length. So those are problems similar to what you'll see on tonight's homework. Good luck.